Although I'm not a fan of the Snyderverse, I still find it a shame that Andy Muschietti didn't use the DC universe that was set up to bring to the screen what was missing in CW's adaptation of Flashpoint. But let's not be surprised, since its infancy, the DCEU has been filled with disappointments and missed opportunities.
Miss Lane, Jimmy Olsen, photographer.
Such as hiring Jeffrey Dean Morgan to play Thomas Wayne for just a few seconds in 2016 and never having him play Batman in an adaptation of Flashpoint. Maybe that's what Zack Snyder was planning to do one day, who knows? Especially since the changes made by the Flashpoint to the universe of Batman are frankly more fascinating than those made to the other characters. Indeed, in this version where it's Bruce Wayne who died in the alley and where it's Thomas Wayne who became Batman, the Joker is none other than Martha, who lost her mind after the death of her son. I don't know the actress who played Martha in BVS very well, but I'm sure she would have played Joker at least as good as Jared Leto. Instead of the conflict between the Amazons and the Atlanteans, the movie still tries to make us love the Kryptonians attacking Man of Steel and brings back General Zod. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't know Michael Shannon was a good actor until I saw him in anything other than Man of Steel.
I will find him!
The frustrated, underdeveloped baboon that Zack Snyder decided to make him play is light years away from the honorable anti-hero I knew in the comics, and his reappearance in The Flash brings nothing new to this character, which seems to have been written by a 5-year-old child. It's curious that with such a vast universe, we decided to limit the Flashpoint universe to Zod, Supergirl, and Batman. Plus, outside of the Kryptonian attack, the world Flash finds himself in is far from dystopian, and the film bizarrely points out Michael J. Fox's absence from Back to the Future as the ultimate aberration of this universe. In fact, even Gotham has become such a safe city that Bruce Wayne was able to fulfill his secret dream of becoming the Dude and doing kung fu in his kitchen to protect his spaghetti with tomato sauce. Lots of tomato sauce in this film. I'm not kidding, tomato sauce is used to represent fate, or as it's called in the movie, the inevitable intersections, in other words, that which cannot be changed by time travel. When I said in the first part of this video that Andy Muschietti's films were fueled by nostalgia and special effects, I didn't know how much I would be right again. The Flash only relies on these two axes and slaughters them all both. Michael Keaton is only here to repeat lines he said 30 years ago.
Let's get nuts.
And the special effects are even worse than when The Rock appeared as a giant scorpion in The Mummy Returns 20 years ago. At this point, I don't even understand why these films are still being described as live action, because there isn't much that is real about these films. Perhaps the studios are resisting the appellation animated film because they still hope to win an Oscar, and they know they have no chance against Pixar and Guillermo del Toro. So The Flash is an embarrassing parody in which Flash clowns around every 30 seconds and is to the original Flashpoint comic what Scary Movie is to Scream. As if that weren't enough, the film ends with several bad CGI cameos that add absolutely nothing to the plot. Some would describe this as fan service, but fan service would have been getting Keaton to interact with Christopher Reeve. Instead, Superman, and all the other heroes just smile watching the multiverse crumble. Since Nicolas Cage is once again bankable for Hollywood,
this is the first time I have been on national television on a talk show in 14 years.
He's being made to appear as the Superman that Tim Burton never managed to achieve.
Will you please come back every week?
What hypocrisy. On several occasions, Flash is seen sneaking or brutally breaking into people's homes and exposing himself naked in front of innocent people, which must not have been difficult to play for Ezra Miller. While the Flashpoint comic took back Flash to his mythological origins, that is, Mercury for the Romans, Hermes for the Greeks, and made him a supernatural messenger who allows Thomas Wayne to speak to his son,
you're one hell of a messenger.
The film fails to show how Michael Keaton's Batman is different from Ben Affleck's except for a very short scene, the only good scene in the film, in which Bruce is seen smiling as he heals one of his wounds in front of a mirror. Unlike Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton's Batman wants to be Batman and does best when he's Batman.
This is how it is. It's not a perfect world.
It doesn't have to be a perfect world. I just gotta know. We're gonna try to love each other.
I'd like to. But he's out there right now. And I've got to go to work.
I don't have much more to say about this pathetic tragedy that we've been offered. It would seem that the DCU is stuck in its worst timeline, and its inevitable intersection, in the words of the movie, is mediocrity. But all is not lost because this film highlights a rather particular phenomenon concerning Batman in cinema. So far, and I don't know if that will ever change, Hollywood has always served us Batman in 3 different ways.
The basis for the animated Batman theme is very simple. Sounds like this. has two answers. One is a more heroic, uplifted answer.
First, there are the films that celebrate the character of Batman as a being capable of extraordinary feats. Unlike the majority of superheroes, Batman is a man without superpowers who was educated and trained to become a champion in all the disciplines that allow him to fight crime. I'm not saying anything new when I say that Batman is so strong, so smart, and so skilled that when you put him on stage with much more powerful superheroes, he's the best. While some supporting characters may question his actions, that's not the case with this first type of movie that always show Batman being right and winning at the end. Thus, people who see Batman this way will generally have a preference for the Dark Knight trilogy, with its apology for the crimes committed by Batman,
You didn't do anything wrong.
its happy ending, and its many scenes that contradict everything we know about Batman to transform him as a typical Marvel superhero who fights his opponents with one-liners that the target audience loves.
Little fight now. I like that.
And you're gonna love me.
Let's forget that in this scene Batman puts everyone in danger, doesn't come back to save them, and that Rachel continues to think it's a safe place even though the Joker entered it without any difficulty to force her to do another Fast and Furious scene with Captain Sorethroat.
Bruce's penthouse is now the safest place in the city.
Of course, in this category we also find Zack Snyder's films, which put even more emphasis on action scenes and special effects than those of Nolan. Then, there are films that ignore this Manichaean vision of superheroes to offer a more complex portrait.
One is a dark, somber answer.
The target audience of this type of movies sees Batman as not quite sane, who would do better to pay his taxes to save his town from the poverty and consequent crime that afflicts it, rather than disguise himself as a bat to hit homeless and mentally ill people every night. Not that this audience is no longer in awe of Batman's exploits, but they prefer to see him as a tragic anti-hero, serving as both a cautionary and critical tale. Of course, I'm not saying that Burton and Matt Reeves' Batman aren't superhero movies, but rather that they have a few extra layers.
Who the hell are you? I'm vengeance.
While for Nolan, Bruce Wayne's crusade against crime is only a phase of barely a few years which he hopes to put an end to as soon as he has made a girlfriend, a project which he tries to perform in the first two films of the trilogy with Rachel, then during the third film with Miranda, then during the last 15 minutes with Selina, for Batman fans as a tragic anti-hero, Bruce Wayne's crusade against crime is an endless fight, certainly impressive, but one that he is destined to lose.
You know this place is never gonna change. With Carmine gone, it's only gonna get worse for you. It's gonna be a power grab. It'll be bloody.
I know. But the city can't change.
It won't.
I have to try.
It's gonna kill you eventually. You know that. Listen. Why don't you come with me? Get into some trouble. Knock off some CEO hedge fund types. It'll be fun. The bat and the cat. It's got a nice ring.
I've gotta go to work.
People who prefer this version of Batman are generally going to prefer Tim Burton's duology, Todd Phillips' Joker, as well as Matt Reeves' recent film, and it's a safe bet those fans grew up with the animated series from the 90s, which didn't hesitate to explore the character's psyche rather than confront him with aliens. Because yes, if we strip Batman of his faults, if we strip him of what makes him more complex than other superheroes, then his adversaries cease to be reflections of his personality, and we are forced to replace them with evil terrorists or CGI monsters. To furnish films thus deserted of all reflection, it becomes essential to fill them with explosions and action scenes.
I want the movie to end with a big explosion. Sky full of smoke.
And then there's the third category of Batman films, loved by those who watch fans of the first two categories bicker and want to tell them to take things a little less seriously.
Why so serious?
Those will not hesitate to cite Adam West's Batman, Joel Schumacher's films, and Lego Batman as their favorite versions of the character. It's of course possible to like several of these categories at the same time. This is also my case, and if I give the impression of hating action and special effects films, it's only because this type of film is already crushing all the others, and therefore they don't need my help to actually become the only kind of movie that fans of Marvel and Nolan are willing to watch. When The Batman was released in March 2022, it had been 30 years, excluding 2019's Joker, since the Batman films had not critiqued the latter. While one would have thought that after 30 years, fans of Batman as a superhero or kitsch mascot would have respectfully left fans of the tragic anti-hero to be treated to a new movie, the Batman unfortunately continues to be despised by fans of the first category, who have come to believe that the version of Batman presented to them by Nolan and Snyder is the only valid way to see the character, and those in the third category, who hate that Batman is presented in such a dark way. Yet, each of these versions serves to justify the existence of the Batman character in the American cinematic landscape. The existence of the first version, that of Nolan and Snyder, is the easiest to explain. Since we live in a capitalist and overconsumption society, the quality of a work of art is measured according to the money it brings in, and we favor, to the point of caricature, the manufacture of products similar, even identical, to that which brought us the most money. This is why, over time, the industry that was built around the seventh art in the United States, the poster child for capitalism and overconsumption, increasingly favored popular films, which brought in more money than the other types of film, until it no longer favored only superhero films, which brought in more money than the other types of popular films, because these targeted and still target their most profitable audience, teenagers, for whom the golden age of popular films, the decade of the 80s, created the PG-13. So it should come as no surprise that Nolan and Snyder reduced Batman to a mere superhero to conform him to the most profitable cinematic model of the last 20 years. But Batman has always been a superhero, you'll tell me. Wasn't he created by an artist wanting to clone the success of Superman, and this barely a year after the creation of the latter? Yes, except that Batman appeared not in the pages of Action Comics, but in those of Detective Comics, and the character in his universe largely originated from a writer with a long-forgotten name, Bill Finger, which naturally leads me to explain the existence of the second version of Batman in cinema, that of Tim Burton and Matt Reeves. In the same way that Bill Finger and Bob Kane used the excitement generated by Superman to offer a character that was completely in opposition to him, Tim Burton used the superhero genre to offer us a criticism increasingly personal and horrifying, not only of Batman, but of capitalism and overconsumption, while Matt Reeves has also made us a Trojan horse. He has taken advantage of the relentless supremacy of superhero films to rather offer us an homage to the film noir and political thrillers of the 70s, a cinematic decade that sadly gave way too soon to the popular films of the 80s. Matt Reeves' film finally confronts Batman with a challenge for his intellect and his conviction to work for good, which neither Nolan nor Snyder had managed to do or had dared to do. Incidentally, that's what popular films should look like if American cinema was doing better. Thrilling films that can appeal to unsuspecting audiences, but thoughtful enough to appeal to passionate audiences as well. Unfortunately, what should have been a great unifying work continues to be shunned by the most stubborn followers of action films and superheroes who are unable to join the cinephiles and readers of Batman in the middle. Which finally brings me to explaining the existence of the third version of Batman in cinema, that of Adam West, the Joel Schumacher films, and the Lego Movie. While Nolan and Snyder fans take superheroes very seriously, and Tim Burton and Matt Reeves fans prefer to see the superhero genre used to make more serious movies, Adam West, Joel Schumacher, and Lego fans are there to remind us that behind everything we can make superheroes say, the fact remains that they only exist in fiction thanks to an immense suspension of our disbelief. Although they are totally right on this point, this rejection of any serious conversation about Batman, the figure of the superhero, and often even the entire so-called entertainment industry becomes problematic when used as an excuse not to recognize the impact of works of fiction on our society. Last year, I focused on the work of the directors by demonstrating that the complexity of the character of Batman allows him to be interpreted in different ways, and it's by observing this evolution over the many films that have been made that we can better understand that filmmakers are not impartial entities, but true creators who inject, even into their adaptations of a pre-existing universe, subjects and themes that are dear to them or that are trendy in the world when they produce these films. If some have welcomed these videos with enthusiasm, others have rather badly received the idea that Batman is not immutable, that is to say the fact that each filmmaker transforms Batman according to their own interests and their context. But what about the actors who played the Caped Crusader? While The Flash has just dusted off the actor who reinvented Batman for the cinema, allow me to congratulate each of the actors who played Batman on an aspect that they knew how to master better than the others.